What's going on, you guys? The Keith Carnes here, and welcome to the newest series of my channel, as of this recording, of course, here on June 15th, 2015. Cartoon Theories. What is this series about? I'm going to give you a quick rundown, then we're going to get into the very first episode, the debut episode of this series. What this series is going to entail is obviously talking about theories about cartoons, popular cartoons from past and present. Of course, today we are talking about Ed, Ed, and Eddy, and the Purgatory Theory. Sorry, I'm retarded when it comes to pronouncing certain words. The Purgatory Theory is one of the most interesting theories to me, so I decided to kick off the series with this one because it's one of my favorites. Now, of course, you can go read this for yourself on the Fan Theory Wiki. If you just do a simple Google search, you can look at it yourself. So without further ado, let's get into this. So Ed and Eddy was a show that ran for quite some time. I'm not sure exactly how long, because we're not talking about the show itself and its runtime. We're talking about the show's Purgatory Theory. Now, I grew up watching Ed, and Eddy. I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, watching cartoons as a kid, and Ed and Eddy was a big part of my childhood. I loved it. My sisters loved it. We used to always watch it together, and we absolutely loved it. I haven't seen the show in many, many years, as I'm now grown, and I have no desire to watch the show anymore. But this Purgatory Theory recently found its way to me via YouTube, because I don't just make videos, I also watch a ton of videos here on YouTube, and I came across this theory and I found it extremely interesting. Now, I've never planned on doing a video of my own on these, but I decided, since my Is It Real series is ending and I'm having to kind of create new series, why not go ahead and make a cartoon one? Because there's more out there that are very interesting. One's about SpongeBob, one's about the Powerpuff Girls, one's about all these other great cartoons that I grew up on, that I could talk about these very, very interesting theories. So without further ado, I'm going to read you guys what the Purgatory Theory is about and give you my opinion on whether I think it holds up or if I think it's just a clever theory that's just simply not true. So the Purgatory Theory for Ed and Eddy. This theory for Ed, and Eddy possess the possibility on whether or not the kids that inhabit the Coalsack are actually dead, and that the Coalsack in which they reside in actually takes place in a purgatory-like setting. This theory points to facts such as the children's green and blue tongues. The tongue does in fact turn a bluish shade when you die. The total lack of adults, the endless summer in the early seasons, and the small isolated cul-de-sac that comprises almost their whole world. So, kind of a good thing there. I mean, they do have blue and green tongues, which is very, very weird and has never been explained in the show. And the fact that the cul-de-sac just seems to be their whole world. Now, in all fairness, the cul-de-sac could be about it being their entire thing, their entire world, while they are kids. I mean, when I was a kid, my neighborhood was my whole world. You know, of course I knew there was a bigger world out there, but for me as a kid, I would never venture very far from my neighborhood because I was just a kid and the world was too big for me as a kid. So that part I can let go, but the blue and green tongues and the lack of adults is very interesting. According to the theory, the children of the Coalsack actually came from different time periods, ranging from the early 1900s to the late 2000s. This theory also explains why the year for the show is very hard to pinpoint, and also explains the answer as to why there aren't any adults in the show, even though you do usually catch a glimpse of one every now and then. So that's very, very interesting there too. According to the theory, Rolf, who came first in the 1900s, his family had moved to Peach Creek in order to establish a farm on its land. Rolf died in 1903 and his family's farm animals stampeded and trampled him. Ouch. This was the supposed reason as to why he only has one cow, one goat, a few pigs, and a few chickens, not enough animals to catch a fatal stampede in the afterlife. Johnny 2x4 came next to the cul-de-sac. Not too long after Rolf's death, having no friends, Johnny took a marker and drew a face on a piece of wood and dubbed it Plank. He died in 1922 after fighting a long battle with tuberculosis. He took his friend Plank with him to the afterlife, since he was the last thing he saw in life before he died. Eddy came next. He was born in New York, but eventually moved to Peach Creek during the Great Depression era. Always trying to get a quick buck, he always set up scams to get money from the cul-de-sac kids. Sounds plausible. After one of his scams went awry, Eddy was chased by swindled children of the cul-de-sac and ran to the lake and jumped into it. Eddy ends up drowning in that lake and soon joined the other deceased children in the afterlife. Even though he's no longer alive, Eddy still tried to chase after the almighty dollar by continuing his swindling nature in the afterlife. Ed and Sarah were the next to arrive in the cul-de-sac. Their father had died in World War II, and as a result, their mother became distant and disconnected. That's sad. To try and compensate, Sarah developed her bossy attitude, trying to fill the role of her mother and father before their father died and their mother stopped caring. Ed, however, shut the world out and delved in fantasy worlds of comic books and monster movies in order to escape his unhappy life. They both died in a freak car accident in 1953, thus joining the other kids in death. Naz was born in the 60s to hippie parents. Described as a flower child, she was a rather flirtatious young girl who would always act that way towards the male children of the neighborhood. In the summer of 1979, a serial killer escaped from a local asylum, made his way into her house, and raped and murdered her along with her entire family. Wow, that's fucked up. Because the event was so traumatizing, Naz, like Ed, shut the world out when she entered into Purgatory, and this also explains why she's not shown working around the house like the other children often would. Ed, Double D, was born in the 80s time period, which is around the same time that technology is advancing, and was raised by very strict and controlling parents who pushed him to both succeed academically and to be perfectly cleanly and neat. He is believed to have either died as a result of a gas leak causing an explosion with the Bunsen burner from the chemistry set. Interesting. Kevin was born the day Double D died. He was born to a broken down house, and he also had an abusive father. Because of his situation at home, Kevin would act his frustration out to the other children of the cul-de-sac, becoming a bully as a result to cope with his pain. One night in the winter of 1999, his father fatally beat him in a fit of drunken rage, and he died when he was on his way to the hospital. His father was then convicted of his murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. When Kevin entered into the afterlife, he reimagined his father as loving, and he would shower him with gifts. He still kept his bullying ways in the afterlife, however. We're almost done. Jimmy was the last child to enter the cul-de-sac. He was born in the 2000s and was diagnosed with leukemia. He was never associated himself with the other cul-de-sac children because his parents believed he was too frail to be around other kids. And he remained bedridden for the remainder of his life because of this fact. After fighting a long, difficult battle with his leukemia, Jimmy eventually succumbed to his illness, and soon the cul-de-sac purgatory was complete. The Crankers were different from the other neighborhood children. It is believed that they were actually demons that were sent to the cul-de-sac to torment the souls of remaining children who didn't cross over to heaven. The Crankers are the only characters with normal colored tongues, which would seem to indicate that they are not dead, and that therefore they must be something different. Surprisingly, Crankers are attracted to the Eds for unknown reasons. However, one common guess is that they are the weakest willed children of the cul-de-sac, or because they each symbolize a certain deadly sin. This theory has since been debunked by the creator of the show himself. So of course, a lot of people want to know, is this a plausible explanation? Absolutely it is. I mean, it's very, very interesting. It's very, very cool. Somebody put a lot of thought into this theory, and I praise them for that because it's very, very creative. However, at the end it says that it was debunked by the creator himself. So, is it true? Obviously not. If it was, I think the creator would have said, yeah, it's true, they're all dead. Because, I mean, what could it hurt anymore? I mean, the show's not on air anymore. It can't really hurt. And I don't know why it would hurt anyway. It was a great show. I loved it. I might have to watch some episodes because I haven't seen, like I said, I haven't seen the show in years. I can't even remember the last time I watched an episode of Ed and Eddy. But one thing for sure is this is a really, 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 really cool theory by people of the internet, and I praise them for that. But however, I'm going to have to say that this one isn't true just because the creator of the show himself said it's not true. They're not dead. It's just a show. It's a show about kids on a cul-de-sac, and it just happens to be able to have a weird, funky theory. So this one I'm going to have to officially say no, I don't believe it, just because the creator of the show himself debunked it. But I definitely think it's one of the cooler ones. So this is Keith Carnes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you stayed for the full thing. Sorry it was mostly reading, but I'm just giving you guys background on this situation, on this theory rather. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more, go ahead and leave in the comments below about other cartoon theories you'd like to see me cover, and we'll see how this series does, and that's about it. So thank you for viewing. Thank you if you're still here. I really appreciate you viewing the entire video, and I will see you guys in the next. Take it easy.